Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
You would know this better than I. I don't think it's safe to say like living under mob rule in America right now. Probably not. But mob has a lot of power here, it seems like, right? So what's to do about that?
Well, we had violent riots all summer, in 2020. I mean, that's illiberalism. That is that is anarchism in some ways, and in many ways, it's anarchism. It's illiberalism. We have seen authoritarianism in college campuses where people try to suppress free speech. In fact, I spent much of my career fighting that in court, taking on speech codes. All of the things that, for example, you saw from Brett Weinstein at Evergreen State College, I've seen that other places. I've lived that in some ways when I was in law school in the early 1990s. There were shout downs in class. I wouldn't say I got death threats, but because of my pro-life activism, people would say, I want you to go die. Write that and put that in my mailbox on campus. I mean, that kind of thing was going on in the early 1990s. And the way I put it, and the way I envision what our challenges is right now, is we do have an illiberal authoritarianism on the left, and we have an illiberal authoritarianism on the right. Both of those things feed off each other. And they become stronger because of each other. So if the illiberal authoritarians on the left will look at like the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6th and think, we got to use extreme measures against that kind of authoritarianism and that kind of illiberalism. When I say illiberalism, I'm talking about in the sense of classical liberalism, constitutional rule of law, et cetera, with an emphasis on individual liberty. And so what ends up happening is far right and far left feed off of each other. Mm-hmm. They feed off of each other, and they grow ever more radicalized because of each other. And so what's ending up happening is that one of the central conflicts, I think, in American life right now isn't so much between progressive and conservative. It's between liberal and authoritarian. In other words, if
you really think that? That's what we're at.
Absolutely. So
wow.
So for example, the difference between progressive and conservative, sort of a conservative small L liberal and a progressive small L liberal, is a matter of mainly of policy. It's not of structure. It's not of questioning the constitutional foundations of our government. So one of the great virtues of the constitutional foundations of our government is that if I lose, I because of the First Amendment, I have a chance to persuade somebody so that I can win. Mm-hmm. Because of the regularity and fairness of our elections, I have a constant opportunity to try again. Because of the rule of law and judicial review, if a government goes too far in imposing laws that infringe upon my individual liberty, I have an opportunity to have that law struck down to protect my liberty. All of these things are absolutely necessary for a diverse, pluralistic country to live together. But if you abandon any of those, if you begin to make elections unfair, you destabilize the system because nobody can trust the outcome of an election. Mm-hmm. If you begin to degrade the Bill of Rights, well, then I have less opportunity to contest policies that I disagree with. I have less opportunity to engage, to practice my faith. I have more risk of being thrown in jail for a crime I didn't commit. All of these things that are sort of elementary to our system, if we begin to degrade them, out of a desire to beat the other side because the other side is terrible, what you do is you become what you hate. And you're seeing a lot of this. And so, what we saw in the summer of 2020, there was a lot of violent rioting. And a lot of people on the right were saying, that's Joe Biden's America. Never mind that was happening while Donald Trump was president. But that created a sense of urgency and alarm and emergency to such a degree that what happened? Then there was a riot in Washington on January 6th. And so, wait a minute. So am I now down to where your position is you're going to riot to stop these other rioters? No, that's not where we can. That's not where we can't go there.
Yep. And if that's where we're shifting to, then that makes every presidential election more and more and more important.
Right. Exactly.
Because this is the second thing I wanted to pull out from your book in the final here, but at least specifically. But you say in here federalism, which is this governance where states have Well, you have states and a federal government, right?
Right.
That's federalism. So federalism has become a tactic, not a principle. It's a defense mechanism when you're out of power and an annoyance when you're in power. Federalists are the losers of the last national election. Because if you're a federalist, then you have more power at the state level, right? So federalists are the losers of the last national election. Nationalists are the winners because like their guy's in charge.
Yeah.
Their guy's running the country. If you're a Biden fan, this is good news because thank God Biden's in there. He's running the country.
Right.
Prior, if you're a Trump fan, thank God Trump's in there because he's running the country. But it's like, well, wait a minute. This is not authoritarian role here.
Yeah.
We're a federalist governance.
Yeah.
So that's what you're talking about, this federalism, kind of this tension between federalism and nationalism in this country. And my question with this is, how long can this go on? And what's to do about that? Because it seems to me that have you ever played tetherball where you have this pole in the ground and a long string and a
I'm not very
volleyball?
good at it. Yeah.
Dude, we used to play this in school so much when we got a tetherball set up, and I haven't played it in years. But it seems to me like, you can take a tetherball and you can pass it back and forth to each other, and, that's fine. But when you actually play, you're trying to get the ball to wrap around the pole, and that's how you beat your opponent when the ball is wrapped all the way around the pole. It seems to me, and maybe this is a bad analogy, I don't know, but it just kind of seems to me like the gravitational pull between federalism and nationalism or authoritarian role is towards nationalism and authoritarian role. And every time we hit that tetherball back and forth to each other and someone misses it or whatever, that string gets shorter and shorter, and it just seems like we're tending towards this nationalism.
Yeah. Oh,
that just seems to be the trajectory that we're on. So what's to be done about that?
Yeah. Well, for right now, you're exactly correct. And what has to happen is people have to wake up to the danger of this. Because right now we labor under the delusion that one side or the other is laboring under the delusion that it can just go ahead and win. Why do I have to compromise if I'm just going to go ahead and win? And and the funny thing is that both sides feel like that, even though it's all recent history says it's absurd.
Yeah.
But so there's this enormous. So the Democrats for a long time have had this real confidence in demographics that we are a rising majority. America's about to become majority minority, and we have the non-white votes Democrat. There are a lower percentage of Americans are married, and single folks vote Democrat. And so time is on our side. All we have to do is just wait, and we win. And so there's this huge confidence. And even in the Obama era, that they called it the coalition of the ascendant, that all of the Democratic constituencies were growing, all of the Republican constituencies were shrinking. Okay. Well, then along comes Trump, and he wins. And that really was a fly in the ointment of the coalition of the ascendant, because they were so confident in their coalition, they wouldn't think that somebody like Donald Trump could beat them. How could somebody like Donald Trump really? But Donald Trump won, but he had a different coalition. He had a coalition that said, wait a minute, the Democrats have become too elite. They've been too out of touch. And as much as there is a growing amount of non-white voters, there's still a heck of a lot of white voters. And there's a heck of a lot of white voters without a college education. And guess where they live? They live in the core of the electoral college beating heart of America. And so here's the new formula. You get white working class voters, and you chip away at the non-white voters that a lot of Democrats are alienating because they're going way too left. Bingo, presto, you have an enduring majority. So both sides have a theory for an enduring majority. Well, if you have a theory for an enduring majority and you have a lot of confidence in that theory, you don't have to compromise. You just got to win, and you're gonna win. And so it's one of the interesting things about the 2020 election is the Republicans, they don't have the House, they don't have the Senate, they don't have the presidency, and they have loads of confidence right now. Loads of confidence. Now, maybe they're delusional, but they've got loads of confidence. And why do they have loads of confidence? Because by a lot of measures, they should have been wiped out in 2020. They should have been wiped off the map because we're in a pandemic. The president had low approval ratings. The economy had tanked. Historically, there would be a lot of historical precedents saying they would be wiped out in that election. Instead, they gained seats in the House. Instead, they would have kept the Senate, but for all the craziness post-election. And Trump almost won. I mean, he almost won. And so both sides have sort of this theory of permanent, or if not permanent victory, permanent defeat of this version of their opponents. And so if you have that thought, if you have that feeling, what's there to compromise about?
That's why we're trending towards nationalism, because each side genuinely believes that it's just a matter of overcoming the other side, and then life's going to be their way.
Then
That's it.
They win.